North Korea has been in the news a lot lately, and I wanted to break down everything that's going on, separate fact from fiction, and to help us do that, we are joined by a true expert in the field, Bruce Klingner. He's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He spent 20 years at my old spot, the CIA, but he spent a lot more time there than I did. Mr. Klingner, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's just start with, why is North Korea getting all this attention? There was maybe Kim Jong-un is dead, maybe he's really sick. Oh, wait, no, he's not. What happened, and where are we now on that?
Well, as you point out, there are an awful lot of rumors, everything from he's dead, he's brain dead, he's incapacitated, from a heart attack, a failed heart operation, even from a failed missile launch that he was observing. At the other end, U.S., South Korea, and Chinese officials are saying he's fine, either because we see nothing unusual in North Korea, or some would say they have information that he's fine. The bottom line is we don't know. When I worked North Korea at CIA, it was the hardest of the hard targets. In retrospect, before that, I had worked the Soviet Union, which was an open book compared to North Korea. So, on the one hand, there's nothing unusual that we can see. There's no real hard information on Kim's condition. There have been many reports, false reports over the years of failing health or death of Kim, as well as the two predecessors, and then they came out, reemerged fine. So those of us who have been watching for a long time, we tend to be fairly conservative in jumping to conclusions. We've been through a lot of these rumors. So they may be true. He may be toes up on a slab, but it could also be yet another instance of false rumors, and he just reemerges either after recuperating or he was never in sickness at all.
And what would be the succession plan, if such a thing really even is known or exists? There was a lot of internet chatter over the weekend about the possibility of his sister taking over, who is kind of a known quantity because of the Olympics some time ago. But what would happen if Kim Jong-un dropped dead of a heart attack tomorrow?
Well, again, the answer is we don't know. There's no formal succession plan in the North Korean Constitution, as there wasn't when Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, died in 2011. There may be a plan behind the scenes, either standing or an ad hoc in case he was going in for a heart procedure. So we're all trying to assess. I think up until a couple years ago, the view was that a traditional Confucian society like North Korea wouldn't have a woman leader. But in the last 2 years, Kim's sister has come out of the shadows. She's gained authority. She's gained stature. She really led the delegation to South Korea for the Olympics 2 years ago. Even though others nominally were higher ranking, she clearly was in charge. So I think right now she has the inside track because she's a Kim family member. Others will point to an uncle of Kim Jong-un, but he was really exiled for 30 years in Eastern Europe, and he only came back recently. So I think right now it would appear to be the sister, but again, we don't know.
And what's the concern if there was a death? I mean, there were some people obviously who were celebrating this a bit prematurely celebrating, and as we now know, because who knows what even is going on with Kim Jong-un. But is there a great, would it be a good thing from the perspective of geopolitics and international relations if Kim Jong-un died, or are there too many unknowns that maybe it's a devil situation versus whoever could come after him? I mean, how would we assess that right now? Is it an opportunity if he dies? Well, is it a possible collapse?
Sort of all of the above. No one outside of North Korea is going to shed a tear if this brutal dictator, who, according to the UN, is a purveyor of crimes against humanity, if he passes away. But there will be concern by the United States, as well as South Korea and Japan, our critical allies, about uncertainty in succession. There's the fear of an explosion, and that North Korea may lash out at its neighbors, either because of a perceived threat from outside or to create a rally around the flag effect for succession, or an implosion of regime collapse, regime instability, a power struggle, civil war, who's got control of the nuclear weapons. So all of those are very real concerns. There's going to be a lot of visibility by the U.S. and its allies, the military and intelligence communities on what's going on. That said, we had the same concerns when the two previous leaders passed away, and the system worked, and that the regime maintained itself, and the anointed successor did succeed, even though many had predicted they would fail.
What do we know about, and by the way, we're speaking to Bruce Klingner. He is a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, 20 years spent before that at the Central Intelligence Agency. Bruce, what do we know about how North Korea is handling the coronavirus situation, considering that they're right next door to China? China had this terrible outbreak. One of the only countries really that has consistent commerce with North Korea is China. So do we know? Again, we know it's a black box to some degree, but have we seen any indicators that they've had this disease spread within their borders?
North Korea still officially says they've had no cases whatsoever. None of us believe that because all of the neighboring countries had it. But right after the outbreak in China, they imposed some pretty strong containment measures. They cut off really contact with the outside world. They canceled flights from Beijing and Moscow. They closed the border with China. And they even cracked down on state-run smuggling, which had been a way of gaining money for the regime to try to circumvent UN sanctions. So the border with China is still a bit porous, but it has really been cracked down on. So there are sources inside North Korea that says there have been deaths, there have been cases, but we're not seeing real indications of widespread death or disease as one might have expected. So perhaps they were able to dodge a bullet on COVID. And there are indications that some schools in Pyongyang are starting to reopen.
So being the hermit kingdom, as it's called in this case, might have actually been something of an advantage, being such an isolated place. The isolation may have paid off for them in that regard. How is the Trump administration overall at this point? How would you assess how they've done in dealing with North Korea? Just sort of taking a step back, we're going to be heading into an election this fall. Trump had all this outreach to Kim Jong-un. Now he's back in the headlines because of what may have been some health issues. Again, we don't know, as you've established. But has Trump had the right approach? Do we have anything to show for now going into year 4 of a new tactic or new tactics when it comes to North Korea?
We've made absolutely no progress on denuclearization or getting any kind of change in North Korean behavior. Recently, North Korea has said they are not interested in any working level or even summit level meetings with President Trump unless we basically capitulate on our denuclearization policy. So, I wasn't a supporter of the idea of the summit diplomacy. I'm more of a traditionalist in the idea of you actually make progress at the working level and work up to a summit where you sign an agreement. But at least it did put to the test the idea that many people had of if only the leaders from the two countries could get together, only the North Korean leader can make a decision, so therefore we'd have a breakthrough. Well, we've tested that hypothesis and found it false. So, I think there's a lot that I have been critical of the Trump administration on North Korea, but no administration or president has a monopoly on good or bad ideas when it comes to North Korea. So what we have to do is have a truly maximum pressure policy. That we have not had that, despite the moniker. We've been holding back on enforcing our own laws as well as UN sanctions. We've been curtailing military exercises for 2 years on the Korean Peninsula. And right now we're engaged in some very torturous negotiations with South Korea over their compensation for U.S. forces. I don't think the U.S. should be demanding exorbitant increases, a 5-fold increase, as the administration is. I think we should accept a incremental increase, because right now we need to be shoulder to shoulder with our allies, not bickering over nickels and dimes when we face common threats, not only from North Korea, but also China.
Bruce Klingner of the Heritage Foundation and formerly of the CIA. Bruce, thank you so much for your expertise, sir. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.